Hey guys, welcome to Belgian Hikers. Welcome to the start of the Lee Trail. This one is pretty special to us because this was the trail that got us back into hiking a couple of years ago. I remember vividly we were very heavily packed. I wasn't in the best condition, and somewhere I think 50 meters, 100 meters up that hill was the first time that I thought, why did I get myself into this? Because it's a great trail, it's beautiful, but it's not for the faint of heart. But let's rewind. How do you get to the start of the trail here at the statue of General Patton in Ettelbruck? Well, public transportation being free in Luxembourg, going by rail is an obvious first option. We decided to go by car, arriving a day early and spending the night at the camping in Ettelbruck, not far from the official start of the hike. We quickly found out, however, that Ettelbruck is not a very long-term parking-friendly city, so we decided to take the car to Goutenbach, which is where the trail ends, and then take the train back. And that would have been a great idea if that train hadn't been cancelled due to rail works. Luckily, there was a free shuttle service. All this meant that it was almost 11 before we even got to the start of the trail, and in many multi-day hikes that would have been a problem since there were only so many hikeable hours in a day. Luckily, the Lee Trail is not very long. We did a video last year about the Iceleg Trail, and in a way this is part 2 of that video, because together the Iceleg Trail and the Lee Trail form the Escapardenne Trail, an amazing 158-kilometer hike between Ettelbruck in Luxembourg and La Roche-Nardenne in Belgium. You might be forgiven looking at this map for thinking that compared to the Iceleg, the Lee Trail must be some kind of easygoing beginner's trail since it's only half as long. And you'd be wrong, but it's true that the 3-day version of the Lee Trail is divided in fairly short hikes. You used to have a choice in how you spread them out, but since the lodgings in Bourscheid didn't survive the COVID pandemic, what most people do now is start with 2 shorter hikes, about 17 kilometers and 14 kilometers, and a more ambitious 22 kilometers the 3rd day. That way you have 2 camp spots, one in Bourscheid and one in Goebelsmühle. But more on that later. After that rocky start, the first day was quite nice, albeit not as pretty as the other 2.
Ik vind het wel mooi, maar ik had verwacht dat het smallere paden zouden zijn. Beter.
Signage is excellent as usual in Luxembourg, but it's always a good idea to have a GPX file on your phone just in case, if only to get back on track quickly if you've inadvertently wandered off trail. Not that we'd ever do that, of course. Signage is pretty great on the whole, but we did manage to miss one of the cues. Frank's right there cursing me.
Not the best mistake.
We just went down like, I don't know, hundreds of meters. We had to climb it all back way up here. So don't be as dumb as we are. According to my GPS, we did a total of 20.3 kilometers, so a little more than advertised, and though that's admittedly not very far for a full day of hiking, I imagine very few people will complain about the trail being too mellow when they get to the first camp spot, because the day ends with a steep 2,500 meter climb and a very steep 250 meter descent. You can imagine our happiness upon finding out we made it just in time for a drink before the bar closed. Day 2 is the shortest of the 3 with only about 14 kilometers. I wouldn't call it easy because it still has some uphill portions that do mean business, but the shorter distance leaves you with plenty of time to enjoy the surroundings. There's lots of benches, lots of beautiful lookout spots, so you could definitely take your time here. But I don't think I recommend the Lee Trail to people who are mainly looking to get away from civilization. You do spend most of your time in beautiful surroundings, and you hardly pass any towns other than the ones where you camp, but it's unfortunately not very quiet. You quickly notice that the Grand Duchy, with its bendy roads and amazing road infrastructure, is very popular with motorcycle tourists. Everyone should be free to enjoy their hobby, obviously, but I did find myself wishing a few times that the transition to electric motorbikes doesn't take too long. Short distance means you get to spend quite a bit of time in camp, and so it's a good thing that Camping du Nord feels like the most alive of the 3, though they're all pretty decent. The spot that's usually reserved for hikers is in a quiet spot right at the end near the bridge. There's a shop, there's a bar, some great Thai street food, and plenty of opportunity to enjoy the water of the Sur River. The last day is both the most demanding and the most beautiful of the 3. Lots of single tracks through ancient mossy trees, beautiful flowers, some minor clambering over rocks, nothing too dangerous, at least in the dry weather that we've had. In wet conditions with more mud and wet stone, you'll want to make sure to bring shoes with grippy soles. In warm weather, I think the main concern is probably going to be your water supply. We've marked some spots on the map where you can get water with a filter, but at least some of those look like they would be dry come summer. Our hike was at the start of May after a couple of rainy weeks. Aside from the campings, you pass very few spots where you can get a drink, this spot in Ettelbruck being the only exception. So it's a good idea to refill your water supply whenever you can, bring a filter, and drink as much as possible while you're at it. So, who's this for? How difficult is it? That's always a key question with a trail like this, and it will obviously depend on how many days you plan to take to complete it. I'm sure there's people out there who can do it in a day, but for mere mortals, the choice is probably between 2 days and 3 days. Doing it in 2 days, especially with a full backpack, does require some, or more than some, hiking experience. We met a Dutch fellow hiker named Moulin, great guy, who recently did the entire Pacific Crest Trail. Quite the achievement. And of course, for him, this was a relatively easy 2-day hike.
I wanted to hike a trail which was close to home, a bit challenging. So I found this one actually on, I think also on YouTube or internet. And yeah, it's a pretty good trail. A lot of nice climbs and good sights. For everyone, they can decide for themselves if they do it in 2 days or 3 or how long you want to do it.
We did it in 3 days, and on the one hand, it's a pretty chill experience in terms of how many hours you actually spend hiking, but I'm a bit hesitant to say that this is a good beginner's hike.
As a total beginner, it's probably not the best trail, but if you have some experience with hiking and like to go outdoors and challenge yourself a bit, I think this one is a good trail.
We always bring a full backpack ourselves, if only because we're usually testing out some new gear, but given Luxembourg's great and free public transportation, it is probably not the most efficient way of traveling. Bivouac isn't legal in Luxembourg, and there are no free campsites, though if you're dead set on wild camping, you're likely to find a spot. In conclusion, I think the Lee Trail is a legitimately awesome trail in a beautiful part of the world, great as an ambitious hike for experienced hikers in 2 days, or as a more mellow experience for hikers who aren't afraid of vertical meters but like long, chill evenings by the river. Please don't hesitate to share your own experience and questions in the comments, and see you all on the trail.